Thanks for staying with us as we talk about the upcoming election. Joining us now is Jennifer Jones Austin, CEO of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, or FPWA. That's an anti-poverty group. And just days ago, this nonprofit put out this report, True Cost of Economic Security, Policy Implications for New York City. Jennifer, always good to see you, my friend.
Always good to be with you.
Yeah, and you know, this report, I read it, it is deep. And it finds that nearly 2/3 of New Yorkers cannot make ends meet. We've been reporting that. But here's what was different from what we typically report. It cuts across all races and boroughs.
Absolutely cuts across all races and boroughs. It cuts across like ethnicity, right? You know, we look at this and we see that it's not just black and brown persons who are struggling. White persons in New York City are struggling. What it tells us is that the measures that we've been using don't see everybody. It tells us that older people are struggling. It tells us that people with families and individuals, everybody's struggling.
Everybody, it's cutting across the board. So you've been front and center at so many forums and debates leading up to this election. How are the candidates, in your view, how do they fare on affordability? Because they'll all start out saying affordability, you know, all the polls show affordability. But what do you make of their solutions?
So my greatest concern is that they are looking at these issues as kind of one-off. Oh, let's figure out how we have universal child care, or let's figure out what we do about housing. And what they're not appreciating is that the gap, when we look at what people need to meet their daily needs, plan and save for their future, be it retirement or, you know, for their children's future, to weather an economic storm, a car breaks down and they've got to decide between paying their rent and paying to get the car fixed so they can go to work. When we look at all of these costs and we look at the resources, what it tells us that on average in New York City, the gap is about $40,000. When you look at families with children, it's about $50,000. So if you focus on child care alone, that's not closing the gap alone. If you focus on housing, it's not going to close the gap. And frankly, if you do things, you have to be very careful about universal child care. If you give everybody $25,000, $30,000, what might result is the people who actually don't need that for child care, they've not got more resources, they've got more wealth, which actually then can push up the cost of things. And so what I'm seeing is people need to first and foremost understand it's not just an affordability issue, it is economic security. People with resources don't have to worry about the car breaking down. They live economically secure. We've got to focus on that and then build the policy solutions that match the problem.
I want to dig into the solutions because you're solution-oriented. Everybody knows you. The report calls for a comprehensive suite of policy interventions. And like you said, that no single solution will suffice. As a native New Yorker, every administration in our lifetime, we're in the same age range, they always have this big, here's what we're going to do about this crisis, this crisis, this crisis. And then when the next administration comes, we're back to square one. So what does it take to have meaningful change?
So I think first and foremost, we have to look at resources. We have to appreciate that when you look at New York City's lowest income, low and low to middle income people have not fared well over the last several years when it comes to an increase in wages, right? We may have the highest wage or one of the highest wages in the country right now at a little better than $16, but it's still not enough. We don't have the capacity to build wealth in this city the way that we once did. Not everybody can buy a home. These are the resources that are needed. So you have to look at wages, you have to look at wealth. What are the things that keep people from attaining wealth? Do you know that if you get income supports, like, you know, food supports, you may not be able to have more than like $300 to $500 in savings? How are you ever going to get ahead?
Right.
So you have to look at wages, wealth, income supports, housing, childcare, all of that, and build packages that are responsive to the needs.
Right. Your report finds that an annual income is needed of at least $71,000 to make it in this.
For an individual.
And that's not even a married couple.
Right.
$71,000. Let's quickly talk about how the federal government fits into this equation. You know, your focus is policy and social justice, and a lot of people are falling through the cracks, especially with all that's happening in Washington and this give and take with funding. What are you seeing?
I'm seeing what I call willful, intentional, structural economic deprivation. That what the federal government is seeking to do at this moment is to make sure that, you know, with the advancements that were made with DEI, more and more people of color, black women, most educated segment of our society, getting ahead and, you know, and growing the ability, to build wealth in their families, they want to pull that back. And so what do? You start cutting the resources that people actually need to get ahead. You cut food supports, you cut Medicaid, you cap student loans for college and for graduation. You do these things to keep those people who were actually beginning to get ahead from getting there. You kind of starve them, and then you can suppress low and middle class building. The problem is, though, that they don't understand that this is not just a New York City issue. It's not just a black and brown issue. There are many people who are going to be impacted by this, independent of race.
Potentially long term. Jennifer Jones Austin of FPWA, always great to see you.
Always good to be here.